Yeah, Nightbeat Media, we in here. We living the dream, turning my dream to reality. Young entrepreneurs.
Welcome to another episode of Living the Dream. I'm your host and moderator, Gregory Tucker. Living the Dream is about individuals who had a vision and chose to take action. Today, we are very honored to have Dr. Karen Townsend here with us. And what we always like to do is have the guest introduce their story. Thank you, first, for being here. And let's hear your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. As you said, I'm Dr. Karen Townsend. I am the president and CEO of K. Townsend Consulting. We are an organizational development firm, and we work with leaders to help them create inclusive environments and build strong teams so that they can meet the needs of their diverse clients and colleagues. I'm also the founder of About My Sisters, which we say we're on a mission to empower 1 million women and girls, and are very passionate and committed to working with women to give them the strategies so that they can live and lead confidently in all aspects of their lives.
I know it has been a while. For several months, I've been following you on LinkedIn, and I've read several of your posts. And it was, I would say, an extreme honor when you accepted the invitation for being on this program. One particular article that really fascinated me, and that was the Box of Socks post. Tell us about that.
Well, the title of the article was Leadership Lessons from a Box of Socks. And although I have been doing the work that I do for 20 plus years, and there's lots of research and scholarly articles and empirical data, what I find makes the biggest impact with the clients that I serve is offering everyday lessons in leadership. So this was a leadership lesson from a Box of Socks, and it was based on my own personal experiences as a wife and mom and member of the Townsend family. And if you were to talk to my husband or children, they would tell you that mommy, wife, has very cold feet. And whenever I'm preparing for bed, I'm always in search of socks. And when I run out of my own socks, I raid the sock drawers of my husband or my daughters. And I guess they kind of got tired of it. And in thinking of what would be the perfect Christmas gift for me, they gave me a box of socks. And it's comical, but I thought about it as a life lesson, more importantly, a leadership lesson, that they gave me this gift based on something they knew I needed. They listened to me when I talked about the fact that my feet are always cold. They listened to me because I was always saying I didn't have enough socks. So they provided me something that I needed. They were attentive to conversations that I had had, and they met a need that was important to me. And as leaders, one of the mistakes I think we make is making directions or giving recommendations based on what we think is needed, based on what we think is important. But if we took a moment to observe what's going on around with the people in our organizations, and if we listen to the things that they were saying, that we would give them what they want and what they need, which will empower them to serve the organization better. And I tell you, when I opened that box of socks, my face lit up like a kid. And as leaders, wouldn't it be wonderful if once we provided our people with what they need, they would probably light up like a kid on Christmas Day? So that's the leadership story from a box of socks.
Okay. It's amazing what can be learned far as from just everyday occurrences. And as often we overlook far as those minor things. And one point that you really mentioned, part of the communication process is listening, actively listening far as to what's being said. And sometimes it's not always verbal, but it's the nonverbal cues as well. Now, on this program, Living the Dream, we like for individuals to talk about their journey, because when people see you, they see an accomplished person. And first thing is That's what I want to do. But the reason I'm not acting on it is because she was lucky. All the planets lined up for her at that time. Often people don't see the journey because, as I was reading, this journey has been 20 plus years for you. Tell us, what has your journey been like?
I have a friend who often says, you see my glory, but you don't know the story. And I think that is applicable to so many people that the world perceives as successful. And I do feel very blessed to live the life that I live and to have accomplished the things that I have accomplished. But it's almost like when a person climbs Mount Everest and they get to the top and put the flag in the dirt or in the snow and say, I made it. And we all applaud that person for making it. But what we didn't see was the journey from the valley to the top of the mountain. And there's no camera crew there when they're climbing and the rope slips, or they're climbing and they're nervous or scared or questioning why they even started, or they rip their pants and blood is streaming down. Nobody documents that part of the journey. So I think it's important for us to talk about how we got from point A to point B. I do think people can look at someone's life and say, that's wonderful, but I could never do that because. So I believe those of us who are at the top of the mountain have a level of responsibility to share with people what that journey was like, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there are lessons to be learned in that. So for me, I decided to start a business with no business background. I just decided that I wanted to do something different. I had worked in higher education for about 13 years, and I was about to complete my doctorate, and I really didn't see my next opportunity at the university where I was working at the time. And I recall that someone once told me, sometimes in order to move up, you have to move out. So I decided to move out. But I have to tell you, Mr. Tucker, I moved out with no business plan, no strategy, no clients, nothing. And someone once said, God protects children and fools. I'm not a child, so that tells you what category I was in.
Okay.
But I started this journey with a dream. Okay. And here I am 20 years later. But I have to tell you, I'm here because of some good breaks, but also because of good people in my life who have been willing to be mentors, who are willing to share what they know, who've been willing to be guides. And everybody needs that. Sometimes you don't realize it. Sometimes you may not even want to get it. But if you have a goal and a vision and a dream, you have to understand that you probably need some people to help you get there, and you have to be open to it. Anyone who believes that they can be successful in isolation, they are going to come to realize that nobody succeeds alone, but you can surely fail all by yourself.
What were some of the obstacles that you faced, the most challenges?
I think the first challenge was believing that I could just say I'm in business and people would come to hire me. Okay. And that wasn't the case. I had to come to the realization that to be in business means you have to do the work. And if you don't do the work, you won't be in business very long. So many people who go from a very stable, predictable 9-to-5 decide to start a business and don't understand what is required. When I had my my real job, if I worked 40 hours a week, I received a certain wage. If I took off vacation or sick time or a personal day, my check looked exactly the same. But what I quickly learned when I started working for Karen Townsend, if I didn't work, she didn't pay me. So I quickly realized that having your own business isn't just something really cute to say. It really requires work. And the other thing I learned is when people own a business, sometimes they believe they work for themselves. I'm going to work for myself and then I can do whatever I want to do. Well, I work for myself in theory, but in reality, I work for every client who hires me. So it's not just me waking up and deciding what I want to do. It is, how can I best serve the clients who have entrusted me with their organizations and their people and their goals and objectives.
And that is, wow, I want to just work for myself. And the point is that you're not working for yourself. Mm-hmm. You're working for that customer. You're working for, even when you are working a 9-to-5, a traditional 9-to-5, you are still, in a sense, you are working for yourself. But at the same time, whatever you do, you have to look at it's about service.
Of course. I think people are very familiar with the term entrepreneur, which is a person who owns their business and is serving clients. But to your point, there are also intrapreneurs. And those are people who work inside an organization, because it doesn't matter if you're working for some major corporation or if you work for a government entity or an educational institution. Every day when you go to work, you are representing you. Mm-hmm. You are the product. And if you keep that in the front of your mind, hopefully it will help you bring a level of service to whatever you do. Not only are you representing your organization, but you are representing you.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you tell a younger Dr. Townsend?
I would tell a younger Dr. Townsend that as much as you think you know, you don't know everything you need to know. And I would tell her to identify someone who's doing what you want to do, who's operating at the top of his or her game, and reach out to that person and ask if they would be willing to mentor you and or be on a board of advisors for you. And I say that because when people are starting out, they always want to, of course, you want to be successful. And I think they feel compelled to present this air of success, whether or not they're operating in it. I remember early on, people would say, how's business? And I would always say, business is fine. Business is great. And that wasn't necessarily an accurate depiction of how business was. But you feel this pressure. If you started this business, then you have to make it work. And I think there's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself. So I would say, you don't have to do this alone. There are people who are doing what you want to do. Seek guidance, seek wisdom, seek direction from people. And sometimes I believe people don't want to be vulnerable and say, I don't know how to do this. And they suffer and struggle in silence when they really don't have to do that. And I think that is applicable whether you own a business or you work in a business. Never be afraid to ask for help.
Because that, just to kind of elaborate a little bit on what you said, and that is there's the sometimes the philosophy of fake it till you make it. And what you're saying is that to a certain degree, you're not going to succeed at everything. Mm-hmm. And it's finding someone that has, to a certain degree, found those potholes or those obstacles and how they manage to get around those obstacles that you can learn from.
Well, I do believe we hear a lot, fake it till you make it, and act as if, and there's some value in that, but I'm really at a point in my life and in my business where I want to focus on authenticity.
Okay.
So if there's something that I don't know how to do, I'm not afraid to say I don't know how to do it. I was actually meeting last week with a small business owner because I have a need in my own business. And she said to me, oh, well, I can show you how to do this. It's really easy. I can teach you. And while I thought about it for a minute, I said, you know what? This is your area of expertise. So rather than me trying to figure out how to do this, I don't have a problem outsourcing that job because it gives me an opportunity to support another small business owner. Mm-hmm. So back in the day, and I haven't had a job interview in a long time, so I don't know if people still do this, but you would be in an interview situation and someone would say, well, tell me about your strengths and tell me about your weaknesses. And I guess that's important to know. But for me, rather than spending a whole lot of time on trying to build up all those areas where I'm weak, I need to know what those are. But I want to operate in my strengths. And as it relates to my weaknesses, who in my circle has that as their strength so they can help me in that area?
That's amazing how you reverse that right there. Mm-hmm. And that is taking a weakness and how you can transition that far as into a strength right there. Mm-hmm. That kind of comes back to something I had read, and that was the story of Andrew Carnegie. Someone was interviewing him at one point in time, and they'd ask him, did he know this or did he know that? And he responded, no, but I have a telephone, and I punch a button, I can get whoever it is that's an expert in that area in here right away. So it is pretty much focusing on one area and becoming an expert at that versus trying to do everything or be everything to all people.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I think it honors the strength in you when I say, you know what, I don't know how to do this in technology. Can you help me? Because perhaps there's something that I can do that will support your vision and your goal and your dreams.
So where's your next mountain or your next Mount Everest?
Ooh, that's a good question. What's next? Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you realize this or not, but at the end of 2019, probably mid-December, a friend of mine said, do you realize it's not just the end of the year, it's the end of a decade? And I thought, wow, I hadn't thought about it. So as I have entered into this year, I remembered a quote that said, we often overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. So I'm embracing this year as the first year of the 20s. And I want to think not only what I can do this year, but what I can do over the next decade. So some of the things that I want to do, I wrote my first book several years ago. I would like to write my next book. The working title is Confessions of a Superwoman, Real Stories from Real Women About Real Life. And I was inspired to write this book because, back to something you said previously, I did a leadership development seminar, and at the end there was a young professional woman who came up to me and she said, you know, Dr. Townsend, that was so great, and you're so wonderful, and your life is perfect, and you have all the answers. And I thought, no, I don't have all the answers, and my life isn't perfect. And so I said, I need to write something so younger professionals in general, but women in particular, understand that this is a journey. And then I talked to some of my peers who were and are struggling with how to balance it all. How can you be a professional and a parent and volunteer in the community and be active in all these areas and still maintain a level of sanity? And so many were struggling and suffering in silence, but never saying anything to anyone else. Because if I let you see the chink in my armor, then you might not look at me the same, when so many of us are trying to figure it out. So I want to write this book, and it's probably going to be an anthology because I want to invite others to contribute their stories. But just as a way of helping us all see that we are trying to figure it out, and if we can have some collective efforts and support one another in that, then it will benefit each and every one of us. So that's one of my big goals. As I mentioned with my women's group about my sisters, I want to empower 1 million women and girls, which sounds like a monumental goal, but I really believe if I empower one woman, and she empowers another, and she empowers another, and on and on and on. And exponentially, we will empower 1 million women and girls. I want to speak my way around the world.
Okay.
It's funny, when I was in the first grade, I got in trouble for talking too much.
Oh.
And that was back in the olden days of corporal punishment. And I had to go out in the hall and put my hands on the wall, and I got 3 taps on my butt because I talked too much. And the interesting thing about it is now people pay me to talk. So, you know, when you discover what your gift is, what your skill is, what you're passionate about, if you work it right, it can become what you do as your livelihood. So
that's amazing. That kind of leads me to something I heard Les Brown had mentioned something along those lines that, wow, often he was ridiculed. He's getting compensated as far as sport. But a lot of things that you do is not necessarily far as about monetary gain. It's a lot of it is, especially far as with the 1 million women, it's about the passion of serving your community as well.
I believe that there are a lot of people in my life who contributed to my growth and development. And I believe that it's important to give back and pour into others and support those causes that are important to you. So some of the ways I do that, I do a women's conference. It's called Sister to Sister. We started in 1993. In 2018, we celebrated our 25th anniversary, and we're recognized as one of the longest running women's events in the United States. So I'm pretty proud of that. It's an opportunity for me to create a space and a forum for women to come together and focus on those issues that are important and relevant to them. So that's one of the ways that I believe I give back to my community. I'm a person who grew up in poverty, and it's always important to me to remember what that was like. And for that reason, I want to be a part of organizations who serve children who are now growing up in situations that were similar to mine. I'm not from the Dayton area, but if I had lived here as a child, I would have grown up in a place like DeSoto Bass housing projects. And so I think it's important for me to do work so that that little girl in DeSoto Bass knows I used to be her. And if I used to be her, then maybe one day she can be someone like me. It's funny. People often say, oh, I want to be like so-and-so when I grow up. And I've had someone to say, oh, Dr. Townsend, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And I say humorously, well, you can't be me because I'm already taken, but be the best version of you. And that is something that I think we have a responsibility to do. Those of us who are perceived to be successful is to share our story so that people know where we started and where we are. I remember being in a group with some other successful people, and they were saying, well, you don't need to tell that part of your story. You just need to let them know about Dr. Townsend. Well, Dr. Townsend is the finished product. But if I can share my story with someone who's just starting their journey, then they know that they can make it. They can be the best version of themselves. Once they're clear about their vision and their dream, then hopefully something that I've said or done can be an inspiration and a motivation. But I do think we have a responsibility to always share our stories. We teach people how to succeed, but we don't often teach people how to come back from a failure. And failing does not make you a failure. Find the lesson in the failure.
That is amazing right there. I know this is your week, and I have to say, I am again very thankful. Promised I wasn't going to take up your entire morning. This is Saturday morning, and you you came in. And I do appreciate that. Our viewers will get something for us from this because I believe every day we have an opportunity for us to learn something. You never get too old for us that you can't learn anything new each day. Tell us, where can our listeners and our viewers find more information about Dr. Karen Townsend?
And they can visit my website, which is drkarentownsend.com, and that's drkarentownsend.com.
Okay.
Follow me on LinkedIn because I do get inspired and write things. They can also visit the website for our conference, which is sister2sisterconference.com. And it's sisterconference.com.
Okay.
And for all the women who may be watching or listening, I would encourage them to consider attending our conference this year.
Okay. And what about your book?
My book, it all started when I stopped using lotion. One Woman's Journey from Chaos to Calm. It is available on Amazon, but if they email info@drkarentownsend.com, then we can help them get the book signed by me. And it sounds kind of funny, but when I share my book with people, I really want to touch the books and sign the books and make it personal. And you can get it at Amazon, but if you get it at Amazon, I don't get to touch it and feel it and sign it. So info@drkarentownsend.com. If they reach out to me, I can give them the details on how to get the book.
Okay. So you heard that, and that is you get a personalized copy. So that way right there, you'll have the author writing in it and personalizing it for you. Again, thank you very much, Forrest, for appearing on this program. As we end, when you're writing the story of your life, make sure that you're holding the pen. Until the next time, we want to hear your story. If you found this program inspirational as well as informative, please be sure to subscribe so you can stay updated as we continue to share stories of individuals who've turned their vision into reality. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook and Instagram, give us feedback on Twitter, or connect with me on LinkedIn. If you are interested in sharing your story, check out our website, nightbeatmedia.tv. That's one word, nightbeatmedia.tv. In closing, let me drop this. Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. That's a quote by T.S. Eliot. Remember, we want to share your story.